So what is going on, guys? I am Black Ops Amazing. Welcome back to another video where today we're going to be continuing taking a look at some conspiracy theories within Call of Duty Zombies. I don't know how many episodes we are in right now. I will leave the links to all of the previous ones down in the description if you want to check them out. But today we're going to be taking a look back at some story related stuff, because things that we were either unaware of or believed to be true back when they were new to us, well now, all these years later, for a lot of that stuff we actually have answers. But not for everything. So let's go back, take a look at some older Zombies mysteries and see now if we can give them an answer. And the first one revolves around the Origins ending cutscene. Upon completing the Easter egg in that map for the first time, immediately after we were shown this cutscene of two children in a house. It is Samantha Maxis and Eddie Richtofen in Dr. Monty's house playing with their toys, but near towards the end of this cutscene on the intercom you hear Dr. Maxis tells the children to make sure the windows are locked and come down to the basement.
I told you before, their eyes should be blue.
It's my turn, Eddie. I can do whatever I want.
But you don't even know how to play properly. Girls don't know enough about zombies.
What's the choice of it, children? Make sure the windows are locked before you come down to the basement.
We'd better do what your dad says. I didn't even get my turn.
Now, the thing that was never explained to us was, why was Dr. Maxis telling the children to lock the window? What was he either trying to keep out or keep in? Some of the conspiracy theories at the time were that perhaps Dr. Maxis wanted to keep out the Keepers or the Apothecans, the Shadow Man, because we didn't know exactly where this cutscene was located. We now know it's in Dr. Monty's house, which is in Argotha, but looking outside of the window at the sky, seeing the clouds and the moon, you wouldn't know that. You would think it is on Earth in England, and there is something I'm going to come to in just a second which adds to that suspicion even more, but the Canorium literally tells us about what happened in Origins. With Dr. Monty's help, the Maxis drone arrives at the house in Argotha. So the Canorium confirms that before Revelations, before the Shadow Man escaped the key and messed everything up, the house right here was in fact in Argotha. But still, two questions remained. Why did Maxis call the children down to the basement, and why did he tell them to lock the window? And it wasn't until the map Revelations where we got some clarification on this, where you can listen to this radio, which is a conversation between Dr. Monty and Dr. Maxis.
Where are they? They should have arrived by now.
Oh, Maxis, you worry too much. In fact, aside from worrying, what do you do these days? As far as I can tell, you just repeat whatever I say in radio messages. No offense, of course. It's important to feel relevant. Big fan of what you do.
Look, they're here.
Well. Sometimes free will does work out. Look at how he's used it, trying to right wrongs instead of skulking about in the house talking into a microphone.
Put the toys away, children. Make sure the windows are locked before you come down to the basement.
Good call on the windows there, Max. This whole process can get a bit messy.
So this radio, which can be found in the Origins area of Revelations, was from the Origins ending, just from the perspective of Dr. Maxis and Dr. Monty, instead of Samantha and Eddie. This is the conversation that those two characters have whilst the Origins ending is playing, whilst the children are in their room. We hear the exact moment that Dr. Maxis sounds the alarm and tells the children to lock the window and come down to the basement. Monty tells Maxis, great idea, because this next process could get a bit messy, and we know from the Canorium exactly what happened next, and that was the arrival of the souls. The souls of Takeo, Nikolai and Dempsey arriving at the house, ready to be made into children is a weird way of putting it, by Dr. Monty. So that answered what took place after the Origins ending cuts off, after the children are called down to the basement. The reason the alarm sounds is to warn everybody that the teleporter in the house, which is located in the basement, is about to get a visitor through it, and these visitors per se were the souls of Nikolai, Takeo and Dempsey, in which as soon as they arrived here, Dr. Monty then turned them into children. So that explains Dr. Maxis' reason for telling the children to come down to the basement. It was to greet the other children, whether it be the child version of Takeo or Dempsey. We do see in the Revelations trailer the moment that Nikolai's soul arrives at the house. He is then turned into a child by Dr. Monty and goes upstairs and meets the other children, which tells me they didn't all arrive at the house at the same time, which is a little bit weird because in the Gored Karovi ending, we see all of the souls go to Ogotha at the same time, but clearly Monty didn't turn them into children all at once. But what this also tells us is the Origins ending doesn't actually take place after Origins. It actually happens after Gorod Karovi. So even though Origins was of course a Black Ops 2 map, the ending cutscene for it actually takes place after the Giant, Derizen, Zetsubo and Gorod. It is between Gorod and Revelations. However, there is still one question that is unanswered, which is, well, why close the windows? And that wasn't clarified in the conversation between Dr. Maxis and Monty. Monty tells Maxis it's a good call to tell the children to close the window, because this whole process, I'm guessing, of turning these souls into children can get messy, but as to why, we are never told. Was it perhaps to keep the new children that were about to arrive here in the house, to make sure that they didn't run off? Was it to keep someone or something out? Like I said, perhaps the Apothicans or Corrupted Keepers, but I don't know why the children arriving in the house in Ogotha would mean the Corrupted Keepers and Apothicans would then start to attack Dr. Monty's house. It can't have anything to do with the Shadow Man, because we know he was locked inside of the summoning key. They're just a couple of theories, but I don't actually know why it would be a requirement for the windows to be locked, just for a few souls arriving at the house. The next conspiracy theory is about Hudson or Weaver being the zombie interrogator in the Black Ops 1 main menu. We all know how the BO1 loading screen works. On the regular menu, you get this, where you are sitting in the interrogation chair, you get the menu in front of you, and you can see the shadow of the interrogator behind the glass talking to you. But when you switch to the zombies menu, he walks away and then comes back as a zombie. So who is the zombie interrogator? We know from what we learnt in the Black Ops 1 campaign, the person, or people I should say, behind this glass is Hudson and Weaver. In the campaign we learn that following the death of Steiner, it is both of these characters that begin interrogating Mason. But as the interrogation goes on, Hudson realises that Dragovich brainwashed Mason to understanding the numbers, effectively becoming a Soviet sleeper agent. And so what we see is the duo repeatedly play the number sequence. They ask Mason, the numbers, what do they mean? But they get nowhere. And so finally, after long interrogations, out of options, they reveal themselves. Hudson comes down whilst Weaver stays in the interrogation room. He frees Mason and he gets punched in the face. But the point is, after it being a mystery for so long in the campaign, towards the end of the game we learned Hudson and Weaver are the two interrogators, Hudson being the main one. So that's that. But in the main menu, when you switch to the zombies mode, the interrogator walks away and then comes back as a zombie. Is this a zombified Hudson? Did he walk out of the interrogation room, get attacked by the undead and then infected with 115 and change into one himself? Did the same happen to Weaver if it's him? It could also be this isn't either of them, and it's a random zombie that walks into the room after they've left and starts bashing on the glass, trying to get to Mason to, I would assume, eat him. But to me at least, I think it's more exciting that we believe this zombie interrogator is either Hudson or Weaver. But there's no way to say for sure. I mean, if that was the case, of course, this wouldn't be canon, even though we know zombies and the campaign are connected. For this next conspiracy, we go back to Revelations, because apparently Ultimus Richthofen showed up along with Primus, Tachyon, Nikolai and Dempsey at Dr. Monty's house. However, we know canonically this didn't happen. But in the alternate loading screens that we had for the Zombies comics, there was one to do with Revelations, and it showed us 4 different images. Up the top left we have Primus, Nikolai, Dempsey and Tachyon with Ultimus Richthofen standing in front of Dr. Monty's house, and in the bottom right it tells us they teleported there from Gorod Karovi. The starting point is Russia, which is Stalingrad, the location of Gorod, and then the end point where they teleport to is England, which, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, is where Dr. Monty's house is based off, even though we've been told it's in Ogotha. However, this never took place. Ultimus Richthofen never went to Dr. Monty's house. It should be Primus Richthofen who was in his place. So what happened here? Now we know from all of the other alternate loading screens that we got, for example the one on Moon, things are slightly different. So this is the original Moon loading screen where we can see Griffin Station on the Moon, a pyramid floating in the background, the excavator and then the 2 astronauts walking away from us. But on the new one, Griffin Station no longer existed on the Moon. The picture of the excavator was replaced by a picture of Samantha's shadow holding her teddy bear, and the astronauts were now walking towards us. There are also some smaller changes on the left hand side of the page as well, but in this new Moon loading screen, Griffin Station doesn't exist, and I could show you all of the other ones. There are small changes, or actually in this case I think it's a pretty big change to all of them, but all of them also never happened, not canonically anyway. What we see here might be deviations from our storyline, so alternate endings that did take place, but because we are in a cycle, whenever things veered off, whenever one of our characters died, we've seen multiple times in trailers. Richtofen has died, so has Takeo, Nikolai and Dempsey. The 5 characters we play as, JFK and the crew, have died in multiple endings. So different things have taken place in our zombie storyline that we've never witnessed ourselves, because every time a deviation happens, the cycle just resets. What we see in game is a part of the cycle until we broke it in BO4. So coming back to this alternate Revelations loading screen, it's unfortunate that we don't have an older loading screen to compare it to like we do on Moon, because this right here is the old Rev loading screen. We didn't have a comic book style one for this map, but on the new one it shows us Ultimus Richtofen along with Primus Takeo, Nikolai and Dempsey travelling from Stalingrad, Garrod Karovi, to England, Dr. Monty's house. So this event did happen, it just wasn't a part of the cycle. We then have to ask, well, why? Why did Ultimus Richtofen along with Takeo, Nikolai and Dempsey go to Monty's house? These characters, besides from Richtofen, only went there during Revelations, but I'm assuming this must have been just before it. Also, when the hell did Ultimus Richtofen join the crew? At what point in Garrod Karovi would that have happened? I have no idea, and the interesting question to me is why? Why did they go there? Did they find out that Dr. Monty was lying to them about the cycle and what would happen after, with them just being sent back to the Great War to start everything over again? Did they find out that Dr. Monty was evil per se, even though he's not, but he is? So they went to his house to try and kill him maybe before that could take place. Ultimus Richtofen being here really doesn't make sense to me. Why has he joined Primus, Takeo, Nikolai and Dempsey? I can't see what agenda he would have for wanting to come here. Primus Richtofen, sure, he would have the same goal as the other Primus characters, but Ultimus Richtofen, his only agenda during that time was to control the undead and seize power for himself. Actually, during the time of this Revelations, Ultimus Richtofen is still supposed to be trapped on the moon, either that or pretty much dead. So how did he get to Stalingrad in order to join up with the crew and then travel to Monty's house? Maybe Ultimus Richtofen was thinking, if I join up with these other characters, then I can kill Monty and somehow achieve my goal of ultimate power. Ultimus Richtofen definitely would have had his own agenda. Other than that, I can't see a reason why the characters would have travelled to Dr. Monty's house like this. This is an alternate ending that probably happened, but because it wasn't a part of the cycle, something went wrong and it eventually reset. But there are many theories you can come up with as to why they even went there. Was it to kill Dr. Monty? Was it to save the children, Samantha and Eddie, and maybe even the child versions of Nikolai, Takeo and Dempsey as well? I don't know. So there we go, guys, that is all I have for you for today's video. As always, hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, drop a like rating, make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.